Good morning, everybody. Here we are on our first Inside the Sefer Shiur for Garment of the Soul. Vayishlach Yeshua. I am so excited to get started on this, and I hope everybody enjoyed the class yesterday where I gave the introduction for it. And today we're going to go right in. So we have, for everyone that has the newer version, I mean, it's not hard to find literally the first page in the Sefer. So the newer version, we're on page 24, but anybody has the older version, I'm not quite sure what page that's on, but somewhere around there, probably. So this Maamer was said, Shabbos V'Rachim Tammuz. That's why I think it's so appropriate also we're preparing getting into the months of Sivan, and this was said in the month of Sivan, so we'll be really prepared by the time we reach this parsha. And it was, it has the same Divrei Maskil, it has the same introductory line, or the same title, I guess you would call it, as a Maamer in Likutei Torah from the Alter Rebbe. So it begins with very similar style, and the Rebbe actually begins by explaining a bit about the Alter Rebbe's Maamer, and then once we get into that, then the Rebbe gives, I guess it's funny, the Rebbe never actually says, this is my Chiddush, but he does actually give his own Chiddush, which is really powerful. So, page 24. Oh, and just a reminder, Maamer begins with a pasuk and a question and something really inside the text. We go into like a life-changing, view-changing, perspective-changing middle bit, and then we go back to the pasuk and we close up by understanding the pasuk better through this new perspective in life. So, let's get started. Spies. And Yeshua sent 2 spies. In Likutei Torah and the Maamer by this title, the difference between the spies sent by Yeshua and those sent by Moshe is explained. Regarding those sent by Moshe, it is written, Hashem said to Moshe, send for yourself, end quote. And as the sages interpret the meaning of for you, send spies on your own accord. I am not commanding you. The sending of spies by Yeshua, however, was not by his judgment, but by divine decree, right? So the first difference we just pointed is, for Moshe, it was not decreed. Hashem did not tell them. It was an idea that came originally from the Yidden themselves. They wanted to send spies, and they were nervous about this whole battle, so they asked for it. And Hashem said, if you want to do it, send for yourself, right? And then for Yeshua, Hashem did actually ask. Hashem said to Yeshua, send spies. So the first difference, Moshe sent his own spies. Yeshua sent spies that were, Hashem told him to. Another difference, the spies sent by Yeshua were sent only to Yericho, which is quote unquote the luck of the land of Israel, through which they scouted the entire land. The spies sent by Moshe, on the other hand, traversed the entire land to its length and breadth, right? So the next difference is, for Moshe, they went through the entire land. And by the way, we know the outcome of this. They came back and they were like, oh, there's giants and they're going to eat us alive and it's all terrible, and everybody freaked out, right? So that was the entire land. And meanwhile, for Yeshua, it was just Yericho. And Yericho was kind of like they call it the lock of the land. You know, like when you open the lock, you suddenly get into everything else. So Yericho was the toughest, so to speak, to get through. And once they got through Yericho, the rest of the land was much easier to conquer. So Yeshua's spies had a very specific target, okay? And Mazel Tov, you just finished Ais Aleph. We can go to bed now and sleep for the rest of the few minutes before work. I'm kidding. Okay, continuing on. Ais Beis. Now that we have that, we know the difference and what the Maamer is going to talk about. Let's begin. The luck of the land. The core of the matter is this: the commandment to conquer the land in the spiritual sense is, like all commandments in Torah, an eternal concept for every generation, right? So everything in Torah that was given then is, I love that. For every moment, every single thing in Torah, every mitzvah, every commandment in Torah that was given at some point, it is eternal at every point. Even, for example, we know that right now we technically have 613 mitzvahs, but like 300 and something, I don't remember the number by heart, we can't do because we don't have the Beis Hamikdash. That said, we do have that commandment that is nitzchias. It is alive. It is true and happening at every point in time. The fact is we just don't have the click to be able to do it, just basically a slight little difference. But we do have, that mitzvah is still there and is still alive. So this commandment, like all commandments in the Torah, is an eternal concept for every generation. So we are meant to learn something from it. And let's get into it. Conquering the land in a spiritual sense means that every Jew must, quote unquote, conquer all the faculties and elements of his body and his animal soul, right? So now we know that it's not just conquering in the sense of, take a sword and leap into war. It means that there is something that we can conquer in our own personal lives right here, right now. And what is that thing that we need to conquer? Elements of our body and our animal soul, right? So we did a big introduction about animal soul in the last Maamer, but just in case anybody missed it, the animal soul is not, and I spoke about this way in depth, but the animal soul is not bad and out to get you and destroy you and hates you and all these negative things. The animal soul cares about its own selfish, childish desires. It wants to keep sleeping even though your alarm goes off. It's the one that wants you to eat that extra chocolate cake because like it's so delicious even though it's not within your whatever diet you're trying to keep. It's the one that is the little child inside of you that wants to sometimes kick and scream because you want to get what you want to get, right? So that's your animal soul. That's also, on the one hand, it's childish. On the other hand, it keeps you alive. If chas v'shalom, we were to slay, we were to kill chas v'shalom, the animal soul, we wouldn't be breathing. The animal soul is what keeps us breathing, what keeps us reminding us that we need a drink, what keeps us reminding us we need to go to bed. So animal soul is a very beautiful and wonderful thing. It just needs to be used in the right time, in the right way. And not only that, but the main thing that Chassidus teaches us is that we need to raise it. Just like we raise a child, we need to raise our animal soul. So again, it's a very big difference between a Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara is out to get us. The Yetzer Hara is out to push us to do the wrong thing. The Yetzer Hara is out to, test us. The animal soul is just childish, selfish, egotistic, whatever else other examples we have for it, right? So what do we need to do? We need to conquer our body. So we need to be in charge of our faculties and the animal soul. Okay. The land of Canaan, which again, the animal soul is representative of the land of Canaan, and render them vessels for godliness, thereby transforming them into the land of Israel. So right, so before Yeshua and the Bnei Israel came into the land, it was ruled by the Canaanite kingdoms, and they all did whatever they did with the land. And then Hashem said, I need you, this is your land, and you're going to go in and you're going to elevate it. You're going to take it and you're going to do, last week's Parsha, Shemitah and Yovel, and you're going to do all these incredible things, take Maaser out of the land, and we're going to come in and we're going to elevate the land. So we need to take this land, which is the land of Canaan, and turn it, by us using it for the right things, turn it into vessels for godliness, which is the land of Israel, right? So again, we're giving mashalim. We're realizing that this concept, which was given way back when, is still relevant in our lives right now. Now, the difference between Yericho and the rest of the land, as they are represented in the soul of man, is as follows. So now, 1 second. Now, not only did we realize that this mitzvah has to do with, meaning go in and conquering the land. The land means our animal soul and our body. And what does it mean to conquer? It means to turn it and use it for godly things, so we can turn it from the land of Canaan, we can switch it over to the land of Israel. But now we have to understand, what does it mean? What's the difference between the city of Yericho and the entire land? Okay? Yericho represents the soul's 3 garments, which are thought, speech, and deed. Okay, now we need to take a pause, because these are totally overused, underthought of concepts in Chassidus. Everyone says, "Oh, thought, speech, and deed, machshava, divrei ma'aseh," and it's used like you throw like Uno cards in the pile, just chuck them in. Yeah, machshava, divrei ma'aseh. Next one, 1 second. Let's take a pause and let's analyze what these actually mean in our lives. Living Chassidus, our motto. We want to live with Chassidus. So, what does it mean, machshava? Machshava is this concept of your voice that you have in your mind that tells you how to process things. It's very interesting. My husband works for the Aleph Institute, and he works for the Family Services Department. So he gets a lot of intensity. For anyone who doesn't know what the Aleph Institute is, they deal with people that are incarcerated, and his particular department is taking care of the families of these people. So he doesn't actually take care of the inmates per se. I mean, sometimes he does, but not directly. He usually, his job is the families. So it's a very, very, very tough job. And I admire him greatly for dealing with it on a daily basis, because he deals with people that process things very differently than others sometimes. So he was recently speaking to someone who's literally halfway through the conversation, she goes, "I'm such an idiot." And pardon my word, but that's the word she used. And he said, one second, we need to analyze this for a moment. And he said, you can't say that to yourself. We have to realize that the voice we talk to ourselves with is a machshava. It is an actual concept in Chassidus. So think about sometimes when you do, not you, Chas v'shalom, nobody on this group ever does such things, but like sometimes we make mistakes. Other people make mistakes. So the other people that make mistakes sometimes tell themselves nasty things about those mistakes, or tell themselves nasty things about their self-worth, or tell themselves nasty things about whatever it is that's a personal insult. That's machshava. Machshava is the way we process life. Machshava is realizing that sometimes what we think is black is not really black, and what we think is white is not really white. I mean, there's certain people that, he was recently dealing with somebody who just, it was like divorce after divorce, divorce after divorce. And my husband's been trying to help her see, let's redefine what marriage is. Let's redefine falling in love. Let's redefine some of these basic things, and let's realize what's what. So realize that sometimes the stories we tell ourselves and the processes by which we think, this is machshava. And not always is it in the healthiest place. It's hard to think about it because we're so in our own thoughts that we may not even realize it. But even, for example, financial things. Many of us don't realize that our the education we've received may or may not be serving us, to the best. So again, machshava is the way we process, the way we think, the way we speak to ourselves. I also use it for diver, but like, it's very, very similar in this particular example. Okay? Diver, how do you speak? It's not just how you speak to others. And again, this is very similar in this sense, just because it is in our own heads. But it does have to do about how do you speak to others, how you relate to others, how sensitive you are to other people's feelings. And sometimes we say things off the bat, like shooting from the hip, as they say. And like, it can be hurtful. And we have to realize that this is, again, spoken about in Chassidus. There's a lot of self-help books out there, and they're all wonderful. But Chassidus also has, Chassidus has the answers, and this is what dibber means. Dibber you can't just drop off the card and say, oh, dibber, and like move on. And Maaser is really your actions. I spoke about this yesterday, but I want to reiterate it here today, that when you take somebody and you ask, what are your values in life? So it's one thing what they idealistically would love to value in life. I'd love to have family time together and, sit down and have healthy dinners, or even not healthy, but at least sit down for a dinner that's not cereal and milk. Like, there are certain things that we say we value that are important in our lives, but action is king. How you actually run your life. What are the things that you schedule into your life and you make it a priority to get it done? That's your real priorities. So action is what really defines the outcome. So we can have all these beautiful ideas and all these beautiful, concepts that we want to accomplish, that we think are important in our lives, but if we don't set the time to actually do it, it didn't get done. And it's funny, sometimes I deal with shidduchim resumes, and they're like, oh, I love hiking, and I love biking, and I love fishing, and I love da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, when's the last time we went hiking? High school, some point, biking. Oh, my bike broke like 3 years ago. So like, again, what you actually do is really representative of what you make the time, and you actually make the action to do it. Okay, so that's machshava divrei maaser. I want it needs to be stopped, and it needs to be analyzed, so we know that we're talking to ourselves. We're not just giving a Chassidic jargon. It is a relevant and practical living Chassidic style thing. Okay. Now, Now that we said that Yericho, the city of Yericho, represents these three garments of thought, speech, and deed, the connection between Yericho and garments is as follows. Yericho technically skip. Connotes reach, scent, and the garments relate to scent, as alluded to in the expression in the Zayar, and the scent of your garments. Okay, so that's the connection. I always have a hard time saying this word in English, but etymological relationship in a line to the Zayar. Thank you, I got approved. Okay, Baruch Hashem, I passed. Between in the Zayar, that there's a concept that says scent of your garments, so therefore Yericho, reach, scent, garments. Okay, moving on. So Yericho represents not chachma. Yericho represents thought, speech, and deed. Okay, and the rest of the land represents the 7 emotions. And now it's a very appropriate time to learn about the 7 emotions. We all know we're working on them throughout Shiur Maamer. So we know the 7 emotions. We know, hopefully everyone has the Simon Jacobson book and they know what it means in a practical and relevant way. So the entire land is the 7 emotions. And meanwhile, the key, Yericho, the city that would open up the emotions, what are they? The 3 garments, thought, speech, and action. Okay. Thus the command to Yoshua to send spies was that they go only to Yericho, since thought, speech, and deed are within man's control. Hence, there is a command to every person to scout out and examine his thought, speech, and deed, and ensure that they are entirely devoted to Hashem. But, on the other hand, the emotions of the heart are not within the control of every person, since tzaddikim alone are in control of their hearts. So let's take a moment to analyze that. What does that mean? It means I can't be happy when I tell myself to be happy. It means I can't be sad when what do you mean I don't have control over my emotions, right? What does that even mean? So let's take a moment, and I hope this is not true for anybody here, but I'll speak about myself. There are times when I'm dealing with what I call a rut, and I'm feeling like everything's down, even if whatever it is, it just like, there's a certain part of me that it's ultra super focused on this negative rut that I'm feeling, and it taints everything else a dark color. And if I sit there and I tell myself, it's terrible that I do that. Why am I thinking in such a way? I really need to fix this. I really need to get myself out of this. I need to get myself out of the rut. Does it help? No, it doesn't help me. And I see some approves on the video. So yes, it doesn't really, really help. And the reality is that our emotions are hard to tap into. They're very hard to actually change. And it's a slow progression to get yourself out of that rut if you just fight the emotion in of itself. But on the other hand, if you get yourself, let's say you pick up a positivity bias book, or you pick up Sha'ar B'tachon, or you pick up a phone and you call a friend and you have a discussion, you do an action, you work on your speech, and you try and talk it out with somebody who will give you a different perspective, right? Machshava divrei ma'aser, your thoughts, your speech, and your actions. Or you just get up and work out, or you just get up and take a shower and go to bed. Whatever it is, you take a step out of an action step, a thought change step, or a speech change step. It actually gets you out of that emotion. So working on emotions in of themselves is a very slow and arduous process. It's hard. It's hard to get yourself to change your emotion just by changing your emotion. There is a concept in changing your thoughts. There is a concept in changing your speech, and there's a concept in changing your actions. And through that is the key to change your emotions, okay? So we're gonna analyze this deeper in the Maamer. Thus, regarding the spies sent by Moshe to scout out the entire land, which means to examine the emotions and ensure that they are entirely devoted to Hashem, it is written, send for yourself on your own accord. I am not commanding you. For the service of completely conquering the emotions can take place only through the revelation of the level of Moshe. And this mode of service is not equally relevant to all people. So what did we just say? It is relevant to tzaddikim, and it says, as it says in the pasuk before, Tzaddikim alone are in control of their hearts. They have that type of control. Meanwhile, anyone who's not a tzaddik, we have to find a different way to manage our emotions. We have to find a different way to change ourselves either out of the rut or get ourselves into a better place, right? So how do we, what did we learn? And again, I'm giving you a bit of a taste, is that Moshe was sent. Moshe was not commanded to scout out the entire land because Hashem realized it's not relevant to the entire world. Anyone who's not a tzaddik can't scout out their entire emotional, map out their emotions and go and battle through their emotions on their own. How do they conquer this land? They actually do the thought, the speech, and the action. They take care of that yericha. They take care of that key of the land. And through that, then they're able to change their emotions. So again, something practical to leave off for the day is that we have to, if for whatever reason you realize and you face a certain emotion, whether it's hurt, whether it's pain, whether it's whatever it is, and you're hoping to change it, you're hoping to refine that emotion, you're hoping to mature that emotion, because again, we're trying to elevate the kanan, the animal soul in our body, and we're hoping to change that. One of the keys that and this is such a practical and like really relevant Maamer, that even just in the second chapter in Ice Bays, it already gives us a tool. It is change and proactively work on your thoughts, on your speech, and on your action. Stand up, go do something, put up, okay, it's a cappella, but put on some music and go dance. Do something that changes you out of that mode. Exactly, dancing. Do something that changes that mode, and it'll actually help change your emotions, okay? Metz Hashem, tomorrow we will continue again at 8:30 in the morning. So excited. Thank you so much for everyone joining. I hope you guys enjoyed.